Yeah, okay. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much to the organizer um, for this conference, especially Fakultas Hukum Unila, Lampung, and all of the speakers, all of the keynote speakers, and also participants. So today, I and Mr. Bayu will be hosting for this session, which is on the invited speakers, right? So, um, because I've been given a task, which is I have not much time, and each of the presenters only allocated about 15 minutes, so not so much, right? However,
Yes.
we will try to manage this session nicely and wisely as a schedule, inshallah. Okay. And also for this first speaker, which is Professor Dr. Ferry G. All right. So I would
Yes.
like to read his biodata a bit, so at least we can have an idea about this our very interesting speaker that going to be to share something with us today. So Dr. Ferry G, he is an associate professor from um, this one, Edith Cowan University, Australia, right? And he obtained his PhD in 2008, right? And associate professor in 2017, right? And his focus actually is on supply chain analysis in the Australian beef industry. He got lots of teaching experience, all right, more than 10 years, and he dedicated most of his academic experience in RMIT College of Business and also Edith Cowan University. So his research analysis and interest is on business analytics, project management, supply chain management, logistic operations and production management, quantitative management operation, research management science, decision making, quality management, and also strategic management. So with that, I would like to call upon Dr. Ferry G, okay, to share with us on his research and also something related to the conference today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Moderator Professor Mizan. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much indeed to invite me for presenting my research project. My title for my research projects since the last, before COVID-19 was Supply Chain Management Future Research and Agenda. In my presentation, I would like to share, what's, during pandemic, COVID-19 situation in particular supply chain and logistics in Australia. I just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you, Professor Mizan, to introduce myself. As you can see on the screen, that's my email address and that's my WhatsApps. I'm from the School of Business and Law at Edith Cowan University, Joondalup, Western Australia. It's about 3.5 hours by aeroplane from Bali to go to the Western Australia. So we have only 1 hour difference right now. So right now it's 3:30. So I'm sure in Jakarta, in Lampung, I think it's about 2:35, isn't it? So anyway, this is my details. I published, more than 71 in top tier journal, which is Q1 and Q2 for in the area of the supply chain and logistics management. In addition, I received research grants and from the Australian government as well as the Indonesia government in the area for the supply chain, halal logistics and halal supply chain, between 2010 and 2020. This is pretty much research grant. So currently receive research funding from Western Australia government in the area of the business continuity, resilience, capacity building and upskilling post-COVID-19 Department of Job, Tourism, Science and Innovation. This is the project pretty much about supply chain resilience and supply chain recovery for the small, medium enterprises. As you can see, the post-COVID-19, we really want to make sure the small, medium enterprises in Western Australia, they keep running for their businesses. This is the area for my research project, dealing for new normal or post-COVID-19. And the second project, currently I'm still doing it now, nearly completed, in about transport and autonomous vehicles. And the third project is about blockchain in the small, medium enterprises. And also doing project about waste project with the city of Joondalup, which is, my university located in the city of Joondalup, project about the examining resident waste source behavior and indication of the effectiveness of 3-bin rollout campaigns by Joondalup City Council. And the biggest project was completed in 2019, was the last year before COVID-19, about Smart City project, funded by federal government, a Rail Smart Vendor Planning Support System. This project actually did very well, completed between 2018 and 2019. And there's several projects before that with the Indonesian government, pretty much about halal meat and halal logistics, working collaboration with University of Muhammadiyah Malang, talking about the halal logistics in, between 2018 and 2020. Right, so before I just start for that, I just would like to share the video presentation. So you'll be able to look at video presentations. Okay, just wondering. Okay, so hopefully it's working.
Embrace energy savings washing in cold water and keep clothes brighter. Embrace the cold with Cold Power.
Shoppers are already flooding Melbourne supermarkets, stocking up ahead of the deadline. Eliza Rugg is in Bentley. Eliza, what's the situation there?
Well, Pete, just in the last couple of minutes, a number of Coles staff members have been placed outside this store to manage the growing line of customers trying to get in. This lockdown announcement has come at a really bad time for both the major supermarkets. It was only this morning that Coles and Woolworths announced that they were lifting those purchase limits. But from what we've seen this afternoon, both here in Bentley as well as Port Melbourne and Werribee as well, empty shelves all around, the supermarkets may need to reconsider.
People get nervous and...
All right, so if you look at okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the situation, what's going on with the second wave happening for the COVID-19 in Melbourne, Victoria. As you can see, the empty shelf, the supermarket, and that's I would like to present about supply chain and logistic management, including what the future research and what's going on the supply chain and logistic, in particular supermarket or grocery chains, with the second wave situation in Victoria, Melbourne. Just would like to share again with my slide presentations. I just would like to share what is the supply chain. I think most of the audience here may be different background from law or from other disciplines, or just would like to introduce what is the supply chain. Supply chain is pretty much consists of the flow of product services from raw materials, manufacturer, components, final product, wholesaler, distributor, and retailers. As you can see, like supermarket in the COVID-19 situations, consumer panic buying. When they start lockdown, actually the government said that, okay, and start tomorrow, actually only supermarkets opening, but remaining actually most people working from home. That particular, the consumer really want to go to supermarket, they really want to buy, and this is something going on, what's happening for the COVID-19 situation. Supply chain is also connected by transportation and storage activities, and integrated through information planning and integration activities. Many large organizations in Australia pretty much is moving away from just want to check from in-house vertically integrated structure to supply chain management. So there are 21 definitions, but definition pretty much similar. What is supply chain management? But in Bahasa Indonesia, what we call rantai pasok. Supply chain management is the planning and management of all activities involved in sourcing, procurement, conversion, or logistics management activities. Also includes coordination with channel partners, which can be suppliers, intermediaries, third-party service providers, and customers. So with the particular COVID-19 situation, for instance, so for particular the industry really busy at this moment, it's actually logistics and also supermarket like food, manufactured consumer goods. Unfortunately, other sectors such as aircraft or hotel or hospitality or tourism, those sectors are gonna be big hit because of the COVID-19 situation. So if you look at talking about supply chain digitalization or supply chain 4.0, this is a situation we introduce in the long term, combine connecting technology with unlock new mechanism for creating and distributing value. Creating value from converging technology, if you can see the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, AR, robotics, and 3D printing. Now with the COVID-19, as you can see, like a lot of businesses, including education sector, everything goes online, right? So with the particular where I'm coming from now in Western Australia, in the last 20 days, we don't have any cases COVID-19. So actually, we are lucky for that particular situation. And all my students actually go back to campus and they still come for the classes, having classes, and as well as I'm doing blended learning, doing face-to-face, as well as, online for students actually coming from different interstate or different, from offshore students, for instance. So in Western Australia, pretty much for education sector, so we go back to the normal, what we call the new normal. So the students go back with the face-to-face, but our university is still open, running for the classes, teaching, learning, research, and so forth. Now, talking about digitalization and, Industry 4.0, if you look at value dimension, you can see individual, society, industry, firm, factory, and, what types of value mechanism we look at new skills, what we talk about the technology augmented operators and accelerating sustainable production. And this is what we introduce: smart processes, smart structure, location, scale, innovation, engineering, digital orchestration of the supply chain. A new business model might be, after the post-COVID-19, productivity, efficiency, and supply chain digitalization. The challenges are technological readiness. Mostly organizations are not sure they're ready with different types of changes, with the different types of technology requirement, security or technology security or information security, standardization, data management, change management, and capability development. So if I have time, I would like to introduce the project, what I currently doing with DHL. I would like to share about the supply chain data analytics. This is something, the area, very high demand at this moment for research project in terms of publication. I'm sure actually mostly participant in this floor, you really want to pursue the publication in top tier journal. But if you think that the publication in top tier journal, you really need to see what is, what research actually high demand, what particular innovation research, and so forth. Now, the research agenda for supply chain big data, the purpose of the project conducted a systematic literature review with the Principal Logistics Supply Chain Management Journal across 5-year time frame between 2015 and 2020. So the analysis will identify the key themes, what particular research agenda for future to guide researcher going forward. So the evolution of big data, so for particular management of businesses or in the area of humanity or social sciences, the big data pretty much is from 1970. It starts from statistical techniques, and then 10 years after they introduced the data mining, and then business intelligence or BI 1.0. That's why in 1990 introduced enterprise information system. And then analytic 2, this is what we call the web-based system, start before the industry 4, which is we have a sensor, radio frequency identification, and Internet of Things. So what is the benefit of supply chain big data? The benefit is pretty much to provide the tools for decision making in global, volatile, and dynamic value networks. And also to improve a demand forecast. So for instance, like in the global pandemic COVID-19, if you look at the businesses like retail or supermarket, they need to look at the demand forecast. Say for example, like in Australia, Melbourne we got problem, but now it's getting better. They experience for the second wave for the COVID-19, but Sydney, other states looks all right. In Western Australia, we like it because we will go back to the normal. We're trying to make sure all across the country and the businesses and then with end-to-end supply chain, we're trying to make sure to fulfill demand for the consumers, in particular for the supermarket. And we reduce the safety stock, we improve the management supply performance, and so forth. So several research studies indicated the big data application in various sectors, such as the financial services sector, marketing, banking, insurance, industry, logistics, and manufacturing. This is a literature review, so if you really want to read a lot of my articles published in the top tier journal, feel free to download, actually still open access, the supply chain. Literature review for the application of big data analytics in supply chain. It's a predictive prescriptive approach rather than descriptive approach, that published already 2 years ago to identify the effectiveness of the big data and predictive analysis, to aspect for the sustainability, environmental, social aspect, and so forth. And according to literature, this published in top tier journal, they reviewed 28 journal articles to look at what impact of the big data techniques on humanitarian supply chain, including the global COVID-19 pandemic, for instance. So we would like to see humanitarian supply chain, like any natural disasters, for example, earthquakes, tsunami, and so forth. The theories, when we look at the theoretical underpinnings surrounding supply chain big data, we focus on complexity theory, transaction cost economics, resource dependence theory, and resource-based view, social network, institution theory, stakeholder, and ecological modernization theory. In terms of the methodology aspect, a multi-objective optimization model for green supply chain, they're using big data analytic approach. For instance, to reduce carbon emissions, cost reduction, and so forth. What problems and challenges arising due to big data in context of environmental performance, evaluation, along with summarizing latest developments in environmental management based on big data technologies. So I just summarized what literature reviews supply chain big data analytics. So I'm sure most of participants, you still keep publishing papers, right? So when you publish a paper for research, you introduce the literature review, like, what any particular previous studies into, related to your studies, for instance. So if you look at this particular research literature review from the research objective, what country, contextualization, what methodology and theory, surrounding supply chain and big data analytics. So the methodology based on the research here, in-depth evaluation supply chain concept and big data analytics is conducted using systematic literature review approach. We're looking at sequential steps including collection, know, comprehend, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluations. It's a key method used to manage knowledge diversity for specific academic inquiry and structuring a field of research. So between 50 and 60% of the research on big data application in supply chain were published after 2016. These publications have increasingly focused on big data application and predictive analysis rather than in the other three types of data analysis, including descriptive, diagnosis, and prescriptive analysis. So according to the finding, for the systematic literature review, what I suggest to any academic scholars or researcher in the other business studies or business research or managerial or supply chain research, how ready organization for supply chain big data analytics? Any particular technical issues you would like to do in your study? Contextual issues, methodological issues. Are you comparing different types of techniques or methodological between descriptive, prescriptive analysis and with the other methods, for instance? And are you measuring the benefits and business case for supply chain management big data analytics? Organization impact and human resource skills and supply chain big data analytics, in the area of the sustainability and environmental context, for instance. Supply chain big data analytic policy and regulations, or maybe supply chain big data impact on the COVID-19 with the during and new normal, or what we call post-COVID-19. What is the role of the supply chain digitalization of big data into the COVID-19 situation? I think when I listened from the beginning, a lot of speakers mentioned about COVID-19. Yes, it is a global pandemic, but what I suggest, a lot of countries, they need to think about it. We still keep doing research for that, for the publication, still, running teaching and learning online, rather than we just, lock down and not doing anything. So this is something is useful for every scholar can do publication, can do research, and then, doing teaching and learning and to support students, for particular teaching and learning context. Now, future research in supply chain and big data analytics is supply chain, supplier relationship management. If you look at the COVID-19 or post-COVID-19, for example, it is very important to look at the relationship different stakeholders. Like, for instance, you're working with your suppliers and you, the manufacturing company or transport companies or, retail or supermarket, for instance. This is very important to build relationship and to have a good communication. For instance, to avoid, if you look at like UK in London, in the last 2 days, actually pretty much they just realized the number of virus COVID-19 is increasing because they try to lock down in UK London. And then what happened if you look at the news in UK London, actually a lot of supermarket, a consumer like panic buying, most people working from home, and then students need to go back for online or virtual, with the online learning, for instance, something like that. This is very important to measure the supplier relationship. The big data network design, the product design development in terms of the future research for the big data analytics. Of course, we need to look at demand planning as a decision making, procurement, to look at the product from the raw materials until the finished product. You need to look at procurement as well as demand planning and customized productions. And then, of course, the cybersecurity is very important these days because talking about digitalization and technology advancement, cybersecurity and inventory decision, logistics, halal context with the halal logistics for the food, food security, halal food logistics in the big data analytic context, agility, supply chain or responsiveness, The lean thinking approach here is talking about this cost reduction, you know, and lean agile, which is a lean and agility supply chain. And then sustainability supply chain, this is the dealing with the environmental impact supply chain, application of big data in different types of supply chain, manufacturing, finance, and healthcare, for instance. Right, so this is the conventional futuristic supply chain. So you can see the supply chain sustainability project, human resources, blockchain, you can see Internet of Things, still a lot of papers coming up, automated warehouse, transport management system, dealing with the information system here. This area, a lot of papers already published in 2020. So good to have a lot of researchers from Indonesia, Malaysia, or other countries in Asia talking about this area for the research, very useful to publish in the top tier journal. So thank you very much indeed for listening, ladies and gentlemen. So if I have time, is that possible I just show the video presentation? If not, then that's no problem, but I'm more than happy you know, to send my slide to you. And then I just return this back to moderator. Thank you very much. Professor Mizan, it's yours, please.
Well, thank you for Professor Ferry. I represent Professor Mizan. Maybe the questions already represents in the end of the discussions. Next speakers is from Asia A University, Malaysia, Professor Dr. Juhary Ali. Before we start, I will try to give a short biography of him. He is a Dean, School of Art and Humanities and Social Science. It is a very long description of his biography, but I will summary. He is more than 30 years teaching experience in public and private universities. 15 minutes for Professor Dr. Juhary Ali. Time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to all the participants. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to this wonderful conference, especially to Professor Toulouse and the team, and also to all the speakers who are attending the conference this afternoon. My topic for the conference is about business here. This morning we talked a lot about the education sector affecting the sector due to the but will be on the side because the university also consider and we like to see how the business are affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. As mentioned by the previous speaker, there are a lot of negative impact on the COVID-19 pandemic, especially affecting the social, political, economic, as well as the lifestyle of the community as a whole. If you look at the issue of businesses which are affected by the COVID-19, it's very scary, it's very scared. As though we are in the era of so-called VUCA world, where the business volatility business uncertainty, ambiguity are all being experienced by the business sector. In the case of Malaysia, we live in this kind of environment. Yeah. Under the pandemic, COVID-19 open control order, still facing this problem. We have to follow our standard operating procedure as imposed by the government and the Ministry of Health. Yeah. On the avoiding on the 3S, we have to avoid the crowded places, so there will be not much interaction in the public facilities. We have to avoid close contact setting among ourselves. We can see that we have to confine and to enclose space so that we have at least a meter space for each of us, even at workplace. And also we have to obey these so-called 3W. We have to wash hands every day. We have to wear masks all the time. And we have to make sure that we have to hear whatever warning from the Ministry of Health. So these are the environment in which all of us, not only in Malaysia, are facing those, and how such environment is actually affecting the business in Malaysia as well in other parts of the world. If you look at what is happening, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the society and the businesses, this is what we are facing now. People are losing jobs, thousands are losing jobs, especially from the service sector, from the tourism sector, or even from the retail sector. People are losing jobs every day. We can see that people are queued up for the food in the warehouse or in the malls. You can see the lineup, how stressful we are in getting food. We can see the classroom in the university empty, and of course it will affect the revenue of the university, as mentioned by Vice Chancellor this morning, where we in business, these are the worst effect on the revenue of any businesses when there is no student or where there is no clients around in our building. And also we can see that a lot of discounts have been provided by the businesses in order to get more revenue. So the lot of discount is taking place and businesses are willing to forgo some of their profit by allowing some sort of very huge discount on certain goods and services. And also we had to work from home. These are some of the negative impact of the COVID-19 on the businesses, has also been described by Professor Natalia just now about the effect on the economy, on the budget risk, on the income of the government, and the problem and the policy, and also on the financial rescue that has to be provided by the government in order to make the business move as it is. So the question is that always come into my mind is how do business organizations perform better during this pandemic COVID-19 outbreak? even though we are facing all the problem, we as a business entity also has been talking about and thinking about how to make our business perform better during the pandemic COVID-19 outbreak. Can we do that? And my second question is that during the pandemic COVID-19 outbreak, do our business model that we had been used before relevant during this COVID-19 15? These are two main issues in business. How we are going to move on despite the problem we are facing economically, socially, and politically, and how we are going to develop a new model, a new business model during this COVID-19 pandemic. So if you look at the business model that are constructed here, the issue is a matter of fit. A matter of fit between our business value proposition and the market and the customer's profile that we are dealing with during this pandemic COVID-19. We have a different market structure. We have a different customer profile, and how we are going as a business to make sure that our organization structure or our capability fit into the market structure that has been changing because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. And then in looking at the value proposition, how the company or organization, private organization should position around the customer's value and need. This is what my proposition is. Yeah. See, we have a different kind of market or the customers now. There are three propositions that we can propose in order to meet the customer profile of each market segment. One, we have to look at the product and services that we are providing now and after the COVID-19, as mentioned by our Vice Chancellor this morning, that we have to look at new products, which products are relevant, which product that can be sold. What about the old product that cannot meet the demand of the customer? We have to look back and whether we should stop it from producing that in order to fulfill the need of the current customer, which is changing due to the COVID-19. We as a private organization should look at how we can provide gain to the customers who are coming here to look at our services and our product. What are the customer gain that we can provide? And also what we as organization, as a business organization, should think that how we are going to solve the problem of the customer. That means we should be a pain reliever to solve the problem of the customers today. For example, people are not allowed to move freely now. How are we going to solve the problem of supplying their food and services? As mentioned by our speaker just now, Dr. Ferry, about the supply chain. Now you can see that a lot of online delivery, a lot of e-selling, e-marketing, digital marketing has come into the picture because we are going to be a pain reliever so that we can solve the problem of the customer of getting food and services. And we can see a lot of e-marketing or digital marketing or e-business are emerging in this post-COVID-19 pandemic. I think it's also happened in Indonesia or in other parts of the world. And we have to provide some kind of gain to the customer. We can see that a lot of discount store, a lot of discount has been provided by the businesses up to 40%, 70% discount and so forth. This will bring some gain to the customer, and this is how the business should react in order to get their revenue back into the company. And we can see that in this post-COVID-19 pandemic, we can see that the businesses should look at how to redesign the business activity now. You know? We have to look at how the value chain. We have to look at how the value network, the supply chain as proposed and being widely discussed by Dr. Ferry G just now. What about the products mix in terms of packaging, about the marketing mix, and about how the revenue should be collected? How you want to gain revenue? Despite people are losing jobs, despite the business is slowing down, we have to look at a new revenue model in order to get money. So I can see that on the right side, I put all kinds of boxes there to indicate that all the products and services should be in this so-called diversified kind of shape to provide services, to provide gain, and to solve the problem through the boxes that have been designed now. We can see now in packaging also that a lot of boxes in various shapes to cater for various types of customers that need our product and services. Some come in small pieces, some come in big pieces, some come in rectangles, some come in oblong, and so forth. These are some of the models that the business must look into or think about how to solve the problem of providing services to and product to the customers where they are facing a lot of difficulty in terms of their revenue, in terms of their income, in terms of their movement, and in terms of their ability to get the product and services that they are needed by by the business organization. So, all in all, we can see that, as I mentioned earlier by our Vice Chancellor, Asia University is moving to a new business model now. So we have program that so-called program or degree by bit and byte. That means people can take one piece or one subject at a time, accumulate it, and get a proper credit, and we award their degree or the certificate and diploma. So we are looking at those boxes. So at AeU, our program are packaged in many boxes. Some in small, some in bundle, some in structure which is different to accommodate the need of the present customer. Yeah. They do not want one type of a product or services, but because of the differences in the income and in the age structure, we have to provide those services or those products that meet their needs and meet their wants and meet their affordable income to get our product and services. So in conclusion, I can say that the COVID-19 pandemic not only will look at the negative aspect of the pandemic, but we have to look at also at the positive aspect especially the opportunity to be more creative, to be more innovative, so that we can move further, and the use of the technology that has taken place here will allow us to overcome the social, the economic, and then the societal problem we are facing during this COVID-19 pandemic. So seems to have a positive perception about the COVID-19 pandemic, not only to look at the negative aspect, but to look at the opportunity of doing the businesses in the near future. And we can see that in the near future, businesses will be merged on the digital platform. And of course, we can see that a lot of innovation and creativity among business, not only in Malaysia, but also we can see that innovative and creative ideas being seen, including so I hope this issue on new business model need to be relooked and need to be redesigned to ensure that the organization has strategic fit on the changing environment due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much from Professor Juhary. Nice and comprehensive explanations about the supply chains and also connecting with the Professor Ferry in the previous explanations. We are still waiting for Professor Wahyu for the next speakers, but he is not coming yet. Prof. Mizan, how about if we jump to Professor Dr. Tatiana for the next speakers?
Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Bayu Sujamiko. Okay. And
okay.
We do hope that Professor Wahyu will be with us very soon. And also at this point, I would like to say thank you to Prof. Juhary Ali, my good friend, okay, from ASEAE University. Thank you, Prof. Okay. So actually, Prof. Juhary have lots of experience. He was a Vice Chancellor as well. So it is great, Prof. And your presentation actually in similar with our team this afternoon and also in line with Dr. Ferry G's presentation just now. So I would like to maybe to open for some question by the end of the session later on. Okay. So at this point, as Bayu said just now, so we will jump to the fourth panel, which is tentatively is supposed to be Tatiana Epifanova. Okay, before that, for those who have the the programs tentative, instead of Professor Dr. Wahyu Sasongko, we do have also Professor Dr. Mariam Shahruniza from Maldives. Yeah? She was a Deputy Vice Chancellor in Islamic University of Maldives. Unfortunately, so we pray for her because she was affected by COVID-19. all right? But my communication with her, she's in good condition now, recovery and getting better, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So, all right, yeah. So our fourth means our
Prof.
next
Mizan?
speaker, which is Professor Tatiana Epifanova. She is the professor with PhD in economics, right? And also have law, law qualification from Rostov State University of Economics, all right? And now she is attached with Department of Civil Law, Department of Regional Economics Branches and Enterprise. And then she has a very good qualification, and also initiative professor of Rostov State Economic University with great experience of organizing international events, professional conferences, forums, roundtable discussions, particularly on the topic of regional and socio-economic development, legal regulation of entrepreneurial activity, and state support for small and medium enterprise. So she also has a valuable experience in managing scientific and research projects in the sphere of legal rights, economics, and business, as well as consultancy regarding publications in world leading journals. Has over 80 publications in the leading Russian and international economic and business journal. So actually very long curriculum vitae of her, but I would like to read a bit. And as far as I know, we're going to have video presentation, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Bayu?
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah. Okay. So if we are ready, so let's the show on the road.
Well, okay. Please, Tatiana Epifanova. Okay, maybe 1 minute to wait. For the participants, if you have questions, so please write in the box of chat, and then Prof. Mizan will lead in the end of the sessions to give questions to destination speakers and invited speakers. Ready? Well, okay, please
Dear
welcome
organizers
Tatiana.
and participants, greeting for the Department of Civil Law of the Rostov State University of Economics. I am Professor Tatiana Epifanova, and my report is devoted to the development of regional business ecosystem as an effective tool to counter the crisis. I wish you a fruitful discussion.
This year was kind of tough for the whole world, but eventually it gave us a lot of new opportunities for effective scientific connections. The COVID-19 pandemic had a huge impact on the global economy, the regional economies and business entities. This is probably the most significant non-military impact of the past 100 years in the first quarter of 2020. Activity levels fell across all major economies, including China, the Eurozone, the United States, Japan, and Russia, with all countries struggling to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic with varying degrees of success. Changes in the global economy, transformation of consumer behavior, dependence on the demand of services have a much strong impact on small and medium-sized businesses compared to the large ones. The most unstable in these conditions are the enterprises of small and medium-sized businesses, which are oriented in providing services in the real economy. There are different causes, for example, the lockdown, the demand falling, the credit pressure, the liquidity shortage, and of course, the fear of being infected. All these cases have a huge impact on customers' behavior. The enterprises of small and medium-sized businesses are more likely to be influenced by the crisis. The cause of it is the lack of financial inventors. The biggest problems appeared in the enterprises which are connected with customer face-to-face services such as hotel and restaurant management. More sustainable in these conditions were the companies which are related to IT services, for example, the deliveries and the distance services. In Russia, the problem of small business sustainability is a national priority. The table shows the dynamics of the decrease in the number of small enterprises and workers employed in bid regions of Russia, complied according to the data of the Unified Register during the pandemic. The first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic led to a reduction in the number of small businesses in Russia. More than 217,000 enterprises ceased to exist, more than 1 million were suspended, and the rest are suffering colossal losses. The main problems in the field of small businesses are caused by the need of financial cost in the absence of activities, namely the need to pay wages, taxes, social contributions, rent payments, loans to banks, counterparties for supplies, and etc. A cash gap has arisen and deepens, which can lead to bankruptcy of a large number of small and medium-sized enterprises. Official statistics do not reflect the full scale of the problem. Since the procedure for the voluntary liquidation of a small enterprise in Russia takes more than a year, the bankruptcy procedure is delayed even longer. So the full scale of the problem will most likely be seen in the first quarter of 2022. The government of the Russian Federation, like many countries of the European Union, has taken a number of legal economic measures to overcome the crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on small and medium-sized businesses, as I've already mentioned before. Many businesses have closed, went bankrupt, and left the market. Many suffer huge losses. Global demand for goods and services has decreased. Supply chains have been destroyed and jobs are being cut. The crisis is especially difficult for startups because they do not have financial reserves. They work for the future and often cannot take the advantage of the financial support of the state due to the lack of financial stability and inadequacy of the requirements for the connection lending. The state policy in many countries, to the degree or another, was aimed at supporting small and medium-sized businesses and startups. The slide lists in the main measures of support small businesses in the current crisis in Russia and the European Union. So first of all, the direct financial supports, for example, as grants and subsidies, special measurements to support startups, tax preferences, tax breaks, discount of tax rates, deferral of special payments. Also, enduring liquidity and guarantees for wages. Special measures to support the self-employed, deferral of debts, loans, rents, and etc., and guaranteeing loans. Assistance in finding alternative sales markets, policies to support teleworking and digitalization, policies to support education, and the legislative measures to change bankruptcy procedures. The next slide represents a matrix of support provided in Russia and the European Union. Almost all countries provided support to small businesses, entities in the form of grants and subsidies, direct financial supports, and also provided support to startups as the most vulnerable in the small business segment. Most countries provided small business with tax preferences for 2021 in the column 3, also ensuring liquidity in guarantees for wages, the column 4, were provided by almost all the strangers. Column 5, the special measures to support the self-employed was provided in the most European countries with the exception of Russia. Deferral of debts, loans, rents and utilities, and guaranteeing loans was provided in the most European countries, with the exception of Russia. Assistance in finding alternative sales markets, most countries except Russia and Greece, policies to support teleworking and digitalization, Greece is also an exception, policies to support education. This type of support was provided in half of the analyzed countries, including Russia. Legislative measures to change bankruptcy procedures provided by Russia, Germany, Denmark, and France. The last column shows the almost allocated by the governments of European countries in Russia to support small businesses. As we see, Germany, Spain, and the United Kingdom have become leaders in supporting small businesses. In these countries, income from small businesses in the structure of GDP is more than 80%, which indicates an established entrepreneurial ecosystem. In Russia, the problem of small businesses' sustainability is very acute, and not only during the crisis. Russia is a country, as you know, with a huge territory and different population density, respectively, and the development of business in Russia is extremely uneven. And there are territories where everything is more or less successful. This is the Moscow region, the central one, the Leningrad region, St. Petersburg, the Rostov region, and the Krasnodar territory. Tatarstan is a region with a low level of small business development are the North Caucasian republics, Siberia, and the Far East. To increase the sustainability of small business and effective development in the regions, we propose the formation of regional entrepreneurial ecosystem. The regional entrepreneurial ecosystem is a favorable social-economic framework promoting the development of entrepreneurship. The basis of a favorable environment is state policy based on legal regulations, state support, and the entrepreneurial culture, a culture of risk tolerant of errors. A large number of business structures within the ecosystem form a request for innovation and implement technologies transfer. Student bodies and communities, youth and school children are the energy core of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, fueling it and shaping the entrepreneurial class. And this slide represents regional entrepreneurial framework. For the sustainable development of small business on Russia's scale, it makes sense not only to carry out theoretical studies and supplement them with statistical data, but also to provide real government support for the elements of a complex structure, interaction of all structure elements for this complex self-developing structure of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. In this case, the growth and development of entrepreneurial business structures, including small and medium-sized business, will be inventable. Such an interrogated approach will create favorable conditions for the development of small business in the region of Russia, and the introduction for digital platforms will give an impetus to the development of cooperation between all structural elements at the national level. Basic ecosystems are state policy, entrepreneurial culture, develop infrastructure for supporting entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial education, environment, and develop financial and banking sector. Access to sale markets, ecosystem of interaction includes the following institutional structures: Chamber of Commerce and Industry, development institutions, export centers, centers of cooperation and subcontracting big business. The ecosystem of tools, internet portals of government services, state services, tax service, government procurements, and etc. Internet business platforms. Ecosystem of innovation includes universities and research centers, centers of innovation, customers of innovations. Ecosystem of business ideas, commercialization, business structures, government customers, foreign partners, financial institutions, and the business sector. Multi-originator digital platform, a key tool of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, providing digital interaction of all structural elements of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So the last slide, the entrepreneurial entities in the ecosystem are more resilient in crisis conditions for the following reasons. Firstly, within the ecosystem, entrepreneurial entities cooperate within their business idea rather than compete. Secondly, within the ecosystem, the state promotes the development of entrepreneurship through the support of infrastructure, creates a request on behalf of society of entrepreneurial ideas. Thirdly, more and more agents are involved in entrepreneurship, which affects the formation of favorable image of an entrepreneur in society and promotes the formation of entrepreneurial culture. Fourthly, the ecosystem is fed with innovative ideas through the educational community. Fifthly, there are various forms of financing business ideas in the ecosystem. And last but not least, the interaction between the business community and the state is optimized. Thank you very much.
Well, give a big applause for Professor Tatiana from Rostov State University. Next speaker for the last speaker in this sessions, welcome Professor Dr. Wahyu Sasongko. He is Director of Graduate School of Law, Law Faculty, Lampung University. He has a lot of publications and research focused on intellectual property and commerce of law. 15 minutes for delivered your speech, professors. Time is yours, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon. Welcome to all participants. After the government declared a pandemic due to COVID-19, this was followed by a lockdown. As a result, people cannot travel freely. They have to stay at home. So, social interaction is through online media, and all daily necessities such as buying goods, buying foods and drinks must be done online. In this regard, actually there are many legal aspects, but I choose two legal aspects related to social interaction and transaction for purchase of goods. That is the law on information and electronic transaction, and second, the law on consumer protection. As the name of the law regarding information and electronic transaction regulate two things. First, regulation regarding information. This law regulating how to obtain and distribute information. In this regard, I would like to remind all of you that we must to keep of our personal data, because sometimes there is a misuse of our personal data. Because the use of any information through electronic media relating to personal data must be done with the permit of the person who owns the data. Second, the regulation on electronic transaction. Regulation on electronic transaction regulated legal action that are using computer or computer networks and or other electronic media. Essentially, an electronic transaction is an agreement that is written into an electronic contract. Again, in this context, I would like to remind all of you that position as buyer or consumer is very weak, because if there is a mistake in understanding the substance of the contract, it can harm consumer, even though they can be claimed or sued before the law. The cost of the case may not be worth the transaction value. Electronic transactions are also protected by consumer protection law, because this area of law regulates the purchase of goods between consumer and business actors, starting from improper promotion, making unilateral agreement clauses, to selling defective goods. I also need to remind all of you that if the item purchased are not suitable, we will find it difficult to ask for the liability, because consumer and business actors are separated by distance, especially in the emergency period of the pandemic of COVID-19, and this will be added if business actors do not have good intention. So, electronic transactions are easy to do, but difficult to hold responsible. Finally, I have to stop the speech because time constraint. Thank you, and so long.
Give big applause for Professor Wahyu. Thank you so much for informative presentations. Prof. Mizans, we come to questions and answer sessions for this very afternoons. So maybe Prof. Mizan will lead the sessions to all the participants. Prof. Mizan?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Prof. Bayu. I'm still waiting, actually, a question from our participants. All right, whoever have the questions for our 4 presenters, actually, but I may say 3, only 3 who are available online right now, which is one is Professor Ferry G, second one is Professor Juhary, and third one Professor Wahyu Sasongko. And we got Professor AP Fanova. Actually, she's unavailable. Only we saw just now the video of her. Okay. So for those who have any questions for these 3 professors, kindly ask or convey your question through our box, the chat box. All right. So if you see our the screen of our Zoom platform right now, you can see right at the bottom they have chat box. So just click on it and also write your question. If you want to write it in Bahasa, in Indonesian language or Malay language, also can. We will try to accommodate, inshallah. Okay, so to make things still move on, at this stage, I would like maybe each of presenters, okay, which is now we do have Prof. Ferry G, Juhary, Prof. Juhary, and also Prof. Wahyu. If you could talk about the what we do have right now, actually, it is something that unusual. I may say the whole world actually is not ready. We are not ready to face pandemic, right? And that's why most of the countries, yeah, affected badly, right? Even this time being, not only the developed country or underdeveloped country, but the developed country also having such a problem. In fact, in certain areas, certain things, the problems faced by developed country is worse than developing or underdeveloped countries. All right. So this is very challenging time, and most of us affected. But what I would like to means to ask our presenters, our speakers today, if you could share your thought and to the participants about the importance of what we call now is health security and also food security. Because nowadays, because I'm in the security defense field, I'm not see defense solely as the very important thing right now. But it changed, looks like now, in fact, the terrorism also not really become a center for the discussion right now. But the center for discussion right now is about health security, about food security. So I think if we can have some ideas about this, and I would like to link up a bit. For example, when pandemic come to our picture, most of the countries, because we are unprepared, we had deficit on the face mask. We had deficit on the PPE, right? The protective gear. We had deficit on the even hand sanitizer. Do we need such kind of industry to be in each countries in the world? Because, for example, even face masks, we rely to China, for example, because we think it is cheap, and then we think it is cheap, and then we need it in bulk. However, when pandemic came to our picture, even China cannot export it, okay, and we cannot accept it, okay, in whatever condition. So then we have problem on that. So do we need such kind of so-called health industry and food security as well to be strengthened in each of the countries? Maybe I can start with Prof. Ferry, and then followed by Prof. Juhary, and then also Prof. Wahyu. Okay, please.
Maybe Prof. Ferry are still busy and will come back at 4. Maybe we'll start with Prof. Juhary first.
Yep.
Prof. Mizan.
Yeah.
Prof. Juhary.
Okay. I'd like to talk about issue of food during the COVID. When we first locked down during the COVID-19, starting on the 18th March, there's a lot of chaos, especially on the supply of food. So this is not because we are shortage of food. I think due to the issue of supply chain. The transport cannot move around. The food cannot be manufactured and delivered on time. But there was supply of food, but because of the delay in the supply of food, it will cause the price of food so high during that few months, But as the government have already given some kind of release on the business, we can see that some of the food are going down, especially on the necessity food, it's not much rise up as long as the supply chain is moving, the lorry is moving, the transport is moving, the import are coming, you know. So that was the main issue why we were panicked with the high price of the food, yeah? Especially on our daily food. So the issue as proposed by our speaker, Dr. Perry, about the supply chain, using so-called the big data analysis that try to work out on the supply chain issue could be able to be used in the near future on the issue of inventory, issue of logistic, and issue on the supply and demand of the food. Of course, each industry, each country has its own food supply. You know? In the case of Malaysia, I think we depend so much on the import of food, yeah, even rice and so forth. But some countries are having surplus food also, yes, surplus supply of food and given free and so on, you know. But what matters is, I think, the collaboration among the countries on the issue of food, you know, can be able to solve the issue of food shortage for each country, and then the efficiency of the supply chain, yeah, from the manufacturers to the customer are more efficient. Then that food supply issue or security hopefully will be able to be solved by the country, by each country. That's what I feel, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Juhary. Okay, maybe Prof. Wahyu, you want to add something, Prof?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. You asked about food security
and also health security
of Indonesian. Yeah. Until now, from now until the vaccine of COVID-19 is fine. Okay. If you not mind, I'm answer you in Bahasa Indonesia. Okay. Yeah. Because Malaysia and Indonesia is one language, Melayu.
Yeah. Satu rumpun ya.
Okay. Jadi di negara di Indonesia di awal pandemik diterapkan, kita sempat kolaps. Kenapa kolaps? Karena alat-alat yang digunakan untuk keamanan diri seperti masker, ya, kemudian juga baju, uniform, terus ventilator, itu tadinya dikira kita siap, dan memang Indonesia agak terlambat dalam mengantisipasi isu pandemik. Sehingga masker banyak yang justru diekspor atau banyak yang bermain curang. Maksudnya adalah memborong masker di supermarket dalam jumlah yang besar, itu hanya untuk menumpuk. Jadi tidak dipakai tapi hanya untuk menumpuk, nanti kemudian dia akan dijual begitu harga naik. Apa akibatnya? Jumlah masker maupun alat-alat pelindung diri buatan domestik habis di pasaran, langka, scarcity. Nah, setelah the police melakukan operasi, terungkap ternyata ada the business actors yang melakukan tindakan-tindakan secara one-sided. yaitu tadi mengumpulkan semua. Setelah terungkap di gudang mereka, lalu barang-barang itu disita oleh polisi sehingga mereka dikenakan hukuman. Nah, setelah itu dilakukan baru ya banyak yang beredar di pasar. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua, strategi berikutnya adalah menggerakkan baik small business enterprise, ya, perusahaan-perusahaan menengah dan kecil, untuk mencoba membuat masker dan alat pelindung diri. Setelah diberi contoh desainnya, barang-barang bahan-bahannya, ternyata mereka sanggup membuat. Bahkan industri kecil dan industri rumahan membuat masker dalam jumlah besar, ya, yaitu dengan kain yang didouble, sehingga masker itu bisa dicuci. Begitu juga alat pelindung diri yang baju untuk tenaga-tenaga kesehatan maupun dokter yang memeriksa, itu menggunakan alat-alat juga produksi dari perusahaan menengah dan kecil. Sementara perusahaan-perusahaan milik negara, state enterprise, membuat ventilator, ya, alat yang dipakai untuk membantu pernafasan. Dan ternyata hanya dalam waktu singkat, beberapa perusahaan-perusahaan state enterprise sanggup membuat ventilator dengan kualitas yang setara dengan produk luar. Nah, jadi dengan demikian secara perlahan tapi pasti kebutuhan alat-alat untuk pelindung diri tercukupi. Terus kemudian mengenai food security, di Indonesia juga sedang isu nasional sebelum pandemik sebetulnya juga masalah ketahanan pangan. Kenapa menjadi isu nasional? Karena kita tahu sekarang climate change, ya, perubahan iklim begitu drastis. Zaman-zaman dulu, akhir-akhir tahun ini mestinya udah masuk musim kemarau, musim hujan. Tapi sekarang enggak. Ada sebagian wilayah di Indonesia yang kemarau, ada sebagian wilayah yang hujan. Bahkan di Jawa Barat kemarin banjir bandang. Jadi persoalan ketahanan pangan itu menjadi persoalan isu nasional. Nah, oleh pemerintah sudah dilakukan apa strateginya? Melakukan pencetakan sawah, yaitu membuat sawah-sawah baru untuk tanaman padi. Dan itu sudah berjalan karena beberapa pulau-pulau besar di Indonesia masih banyak lahan yang bisa dibuat sawah-sawah baru. Dan itu sekarang in progress, sudah berjalan secara dikoordinasi oleh Kementerian Pusat. Nah, jadi dengan demikian, ya, ketahanan pangan pelan tapi pasti juga sudah dilakukan. Terus kemudian juga tadi penggerakan sektor Small Business Act, enterprise. Jadi perusahaan-perusahaan menengah dan kecil itu pemerintah mengambil keputusan untuk melakukan apa yang disebut dengan bantuan langsung tunai. Yaitu pemerintah, karena isu yang sekarang menggejala adalah resesi ekonomi. Sebenarnya resesi ekonomi gejalanya sederhana, aktivitas ekonomi terhenti. Kenapa terhenti? Karena tidak ada transaksi pembelian barang. Konsumen tidak punya daya beli, produsen tidak punya modal. Jadi artinya dua-duanya nggak punya uang. So, government mengambil kebijakan memberikan bantuan, ya, kepada karyawan-karyawan yang banyak yang dilakukan pemutusan hubungan kerja, itu dibantu, ya, per bulan, macam-macam variasi, ya. Terus juga kepada perusahaan-perusahaan kecil menengah itu juga dibantu. Sehingga dengan demikian diharapkan rakyat punya daya beli, kemudian perusahaan punya modal untuk produksi. Jadi dengan demikian baik rakyat sebagai consumer maupun perusahaan sebagai producer bisa menghidupkan kegiatan atau activities of economic. Nah, jadi di sini sekarang sudah mulai jalan, ya. Karena memang pada saat-saat awal beberapa kementerian belum berhasil menyalurkan dana yang memang disediakan untuk program bantuan langsung tunai itu. Kenapa? Mereka takut pertanggungjawabannya. Karena sekarang di Indonesia sudah ada institusi khusus yang disebut dengan KPK, Komisi Pemberantasan Korupsi. Kalau di Malaysia disebut anti rasuah. Nah, jadi banyak kementerian yang masih ragu untuk menyalurkan dana itu. Karena takut kalau nanti dimintakan pertanggungjawaban. Tapi setelah Presiden mengeluarkan peraturan Presiden, sehingga semua kementerian lalu menyalurkan dananya, sampai ke tingkat desa. Jadi kepala-kepala desa diberi dana desa khusus untuk mengatasi pandemik COVID-19. Jadi itu mungkin yang bisa saya jawab untuk sementara, strategi yang bisa dilakukan oleh Government of Indonesia. Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Prof. Wahyu Sasongko. I think more or less Prof. Wahyu mentioned about Indonesian experience in handling, especially at the early stage of COVID-19. Particularly, they have two main issues here. One is about the people itself, the attitude of some of the entrepreneurs, some of the businessmen who try to taking advantage, all right, and monopoly some goods which is necessary goods, all right, and also more or less it talks about certain countries, even particularly in Indonesia, who become good from time to time when the situation looks like forcing us to develop our own supply and change, to develop our own ventilating machine, our own face mask, our own hand sanitizer kind of, also the food. So prior this, we import most of the food, but because of COVID, means we can produce on our own. However, the challenges is on attitude itself.
Yeah.
And then the second part, which is also Prof. Wahyu said about stimulus package. Yeah. And I think it is not the case of Indonesia only, but throughout the world, I think all of the countries, they helped the economy of the country, which is the local economy, to move on, especially by helping small, medium, and also some of the big company also by stimulus package. Okay, we put aside on that. All right, we have quite numbers of questions here. However, at this stage, I would like to pass the baton to Prof. Ferry G. We'll talk about the impacts of COVID-19 towards component and manufacture, and maybe on the supply chain as well. Okay, Prof. Ferry, please.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. It's very good questions in regard for the post-COVID-19. So in supply chain, if you look at supply chain, it's the product from raw materials, right? Manufacturing factory into the finished product, including transportation. So the impact for the post-COVID-19 or during COVID-19 itself, what I suggest to any businesses, the first of all, they need to look at to look at the demand itself. So for instance, like supermarket, if you look at like supermarket, it's a very, very essential product. It's such as food, rice, hand sanitizer, say for example, or noodles or pasta in Australia, for instance. This is something the businesses or the manufacturer need to keep running and keep producing those products in order to fulfill demand. That's number one post COVID-19. Number two, I suggest for any businesses, including component manufacturer, for post COVID-19, they need to implement what we call business continuity planning. What does it mean? It means that the business need to keep running. Of course, they need to reduce costs, unnecessary expenses. They need to reduce costs. Of course, need to deal with the workplace safety. That's why a lot of governments in the world, if any particular second wave coming or during pandemic, they suggest working from home. Try to make sure not spread the virus into the community, right? So this is something the business need to look at and listen to the government, what particular they need to ensure the virus not spread very fast to the community. Number three, of course, in Australia itself, Australia government, we provide actually what we call job keeper and job seeker for those businesses they got impact for the COVID-19. For the workers, they got problem because, with the COVID-19, of course, with the unemployment, in particular countries going to be high. So unfortunately with COVID-19 in Australia, the unemployment rate now is a little bit higher, by 3 or 4%. But, so many people like lost their job, and the government tried to introduce, what we call job seeker and job keeper payment. And for those people, they can get access early super fund from the government. So for example, for every year, they can get access a superannuation early super to make sure they can just, get support from the government, for that particular difficult time. And number four, I suggest for any businesses, they need to try to work collaboration, not only working in one particular organization. Of course, in this situation, we need to work together. How, this is what we call supply chain collaboration. This is what we call supply chain relationship, because you need to work between supermarket and factories, for example, in order to provide supply demand, make sure it's balanced. Say for example, like I'm supermarket, but I'm working a lot of, say for example, factories or manufacturing companies. So if the one manufacturing company shutting down because COVID-19, because the worker got positive COVID-19, then you need to get the alternative suppliers or factories, for instance. So this is something you need to look at the contingency or backup or supply chain collaboration or relationship for that. Now, I think it's a good point, actually, the previous question about food security, food supply chain, and then food safety. Food security is very important because it's basic needs for the people, right? So this is something, if you look at FAO, from United Nations Organization. So compared to 2019, now 2020, because if you look at projection from FAO, a lot of people, like up to 250 million people, they got famine situation because, what we call in Bahasa Indonesia, kelaparan, because they cannot survive, mati kelaparan. Because with that particular situation, how do we make sure the food distribution, food security, to make sure certain countries, they really, really need to make sure they can survive with the basic needs like food, for instance. So this is something what I suggest in particular impact. So I think the businesses, we need to work particular stakeholder, government support, and we need to listen to the government. Say, for example, Indonesia introduced PSBB. In Australia, we call lockdown, right? So lockdown, they got different states. So if we completely lock down like Victoria, definitely people cannot go out more than 5 kilometers. So you only can go out only to go to supermarket to buy any food or any basic needs, any essential activity, like if you go to rumah sakit or hospital, right? So you can do that, but unfortunately, you cannot go more than 5 kilometers from your house. So this is what they call completely lockdown. Okay, so and then they introduce you need to wearing mask, right? Masker, right? So if you're not wearing mask, unfortunately you need to pay fine. So fine is one person you pay fine is about $200. It's about 2 juta rupiah. Okay, the person need to wearing mask in that particular in Victoria. So this is something I just would like to share. What impact manufacturer, component in during, post COVID-19 or during COVID-19. So I'm more than happy to take more questions if you want to. Thank you, Professor Mizan.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Ferry. Okay, I would like to open the question, to give the question to Prof. Juhary. Prof. Joe, they have one question specifically addressed to you. All right. Do we still have to apply redesign business activities after COVID-19? Yeah. Do we? Yeah, please.
Yeah, first we do not know when is the COVID to end, maybe 1 year, 2 years. Then we have to work on the present situation regarding defining the customers. What are the customer segment now? The segment of the segmentation of the customer seems to be different from what we learned before, We have to look for those who are unemployed. How are you going to do business with those who are unemployed? We have no money and no job, but they want to live. How we want to create job for them also through various means that we can propose by the businesses. Yeah. And so into looking at the product and services, people are not buying the way they are buying before, probably before they used to buy in bulk, now they want to buy in pieces, in small pieces due to their financial problems. So you have to repackage the business, repackage the product, repackage the services, or even repackage the pricing, to meet the demand of the present customers, We are talking about the poor, the medium, and the rich, but at this time we can see more poorer now. So how are we going to meet their demand? Whether we have to look at how we deliver and how we package the product. And it will apply in the near future, when we can see that the economic coming back, we do not know how long, so we will be dragged on for many years to come. Take, for example, now people don't have money to go to take a degree program for 4 years, where you pay about 20,000, 30,000. Say, no, I don't have the money, but I want to study. But can you provide me a one-piece program, cost me about 10 juta or 20 juta rupiah, just to take a course in marketing on sale, to take the whole diploma, day 3 maybe cost you more. I have the money, but this is the money that we need for me to learn and study and improve my work life. Then we have to think of this, whether we need a semester system now, based on the present condition of the student, So we go on modular, piece by piece, and accumulate for many years, and then suddenly they get the full credit, we provide them a degree. So we can see that in the future, it's a piecemeal program, especially education, to seem to be a great demand for the students who are having a problem with the family because of the economic conditions. So we have to design this product now. People are talking now, in the future there will be no campus now, in the future. People work from home, the docent work from home, maybe a small office will do everything based on technology, and we can reduce the cost, but we make sure the quality is there. and more people will come and join the classes rather than we can see the empty room now and the empty campus for the next 1 or 2 years to come. It's a cost to the university, especially for the private universities to survive. Now we are talking about survival now. So we are taking how to manage costs, how to survive in the near future. So these are some of the new innovation in education or in other goods and services. How are we going to manage the customer who seems to be not the way it should be before? These are one of the example. We can see now a lot of the e-business is coming into the market now. People are delivering food and services every day. Then delivery, transportation, food panda are becoming doing very well now. Besides the COVID-19 issue now, people are working. You can see the Grab are doing well. The food service deliveries are doing well. These are some of the industry. We can see the emerging industry. And as people are now comfortable with this kind of services now, they say, I want to be the way during the COVID-19, you know. People seem not to go out for food or makan anymore. We do so-called one phone call or the food will come to your office and pay less rather than spending time outside during the meal time and so forth. We can see this new trend in business, and of course the businesses might look at this trend rather than be still doing the old-fashioned and people with the new way of doing business seem to be successful in the near future. I hope the university as a whole, you know, must look back how we deliver the program now. Are you going to deliver a 4-year program, 5-year program, or you have to repackage the program so that everybody can study and learn while they are still jobless or maybe get less pay from what they have seen before. I want to answer one question from one participant who say that about the contract, you know, during the business as well. Of course, when people don't have money and the business has some money, people cannot pay the debt, cannot pay the loan, cannot fulfill the contract. What the government of Malaysia did is to give a moratorium, for the bank not to call all the debts, not to call all the client who cannot pay, give about 6 months for them to settle down, and then they freeze all the payment for 6 months so that the client can recover from their losses. And for this year, maybe next month, they start collecting all the debt and the loan, but simply there are people who are still cannot afford it. We allow to appeal it and to extend their moratorium, on the payment scheme. Maybe in Indonesia, probably they might do the same thing for the businesses who are having problem on their loan, and also the customer having problem on their car loan, housing loan, credit card, and so forth. The government is given some kind of 6 months delayed payment, for them to settle down in the near future. But other than that, we can see that businesses also slowing down, and I don't see any legal issue during this moratorium period that people still have to survive and still have to work themselves to get the payment back to the bank or to the borrowers. This seems to be the temporary measure to ease the borrowers and those who had debt with the bank as well with other financial institutions. In future, I do not know, but as you know, it depends on the government to post some law or they allow that to pay the debt within a longer period of time with minimum payment. There would be another initiative from the government in order to ease the burden of the people, especially the small business and also the customers as a whole. I think that will answer question or issue or bigger issue due to the COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Juhary. So before I make a conclusion for this session, I would like to ask Prof. Wahyu, maybe if you could give some insight opinion on one of the question, which is on legal issues, okay, especially during this COVID-19. Because some of the countries, they face like a new challenges, right? We face this so-called perampok, this maling, all these crooks, and also some of the people who try to take advantage. And also like Prof. Juhary said, there are some stimulus package and also moratorium. We stop bank commitment by people. So and also like Prof. Ferry also mentioned about the supply and change, about the changes in particular industry. So I think more or less it relates to the legal issues. If we didn't get it nicely, later it will create another issue, and maybe certain parties will be take to the court or sued by certain parties because they cannot fulfill certain of commitment that have been made before. Boleh, Prof. Wahyu, maybe you can say something on that.
Okay, thank you. I answer you in Bahasa Indonesia again.
Okay, Prof, please.
If you don't mind, okay. Di Indonesia ada undang-undang, the law of the economic crime. Bahasa Indonesia adalah undang-undang tentang tindak pidana ekonomi. Itu undang-undang lama, 1955. Tapi kemudian keluar undang-undang tentang perdagangan. Jadi undang-undang ini intinya adalah mengatur tentang supply chain tadi ya. Jadi ada supply chain antara supplier dengan supplier yang lain untuk pemasakan barang. Sehingga kalau sampai terjadi ada trader yang mengambil untung secara unfair, yaitu melakukan pembelian dalam jumlah yang besar hanya untuk menumpuk, sehingga jumlah barang di pasar menjadi sedikit. Akibatnya apa? Harga barang naik di pasar. Nah, jadi cara-cara semacam ini tidak dibenarkan. Tidak dibenarkan karena menimbulkan kerugian yang besar, bukan hanya kerugian besar bagi konsumen, tapi secara nasional. Jadi oleh karena itu, melalui tindak pidana ekonomi, undang-undang yang saya sebutkan tadi, itu ditindak. Nah, banyak yang sudah dibawa ke pengadilan tentang semacam itu. Bahkan saya sering diminta oleh kepolisian untuk diminta keterangannya menjadi saksi ahli, expert witness in the court. Ya, jadi di dalam prakteknya itu banyak yang melalui anak-anak perusahaan melakukan pembelian barang hanya untuk penumpukan itu. Dan itu sudah sering terjadi. Kalau misalnya aja seperti bencana alam, ya, terus juga ini semacam ini pandemik ini. Jadi apapun yang bisa dilakukan untuk melakukan tindakan sepihak menguntungkan diri sendiri. Ini yang secara prinsip dalam undang-undang itu dilarang, forbidden. Nah, berkenaan dengan hal itu, ya, maka polisi, ya, dalam hal ini Kepala Kapolri, Kepala Polisian Negara Indonesia, mengeluarkan maklumat. Ya, dalam maklumat itu secara tegas bahwa polisi akan mengambil tindakan tegas bagi pihak-pihak yang melanggar protokol kesehatan, termasuk yang melanggar undang-undang. Dalam hal ini undang-undang berkenaan dengan tadi supply chain, ya, mata rantai pengadaan barang. Nah, jadi dengan demikian melalui maklumat itu polisi sekarang semakin tegas. Semakin tegas apabila terjadi indikasi adanya penumpukan barang-barang secara sepihak, lalu akan dilakukan pemeriksaan, ya, operasi. Nah, di sini mungkin itu saya rasa. Thank you.
Boleh. Jadi Bayu, bisa saya bagaimana?
Yes, please make conclusions maybe because
Okay,
running
baik.
of times.
Baik, terima kasih Prof Wahyu ya atas response to the questions. Okay. Anyway, for this session, I would like to say thank you again to our speakers, okay, especially Professor Dr. Ferry G from Edith Cowan University, Australia. Okay, thank you, Prof. Right?
You're very welcome.
Yeah. And also thank you very
Semoga
much.
kita ketemu lagi tahun depan.
Oh ya, ya pasti Pak.
Ingin ke Lampung.
Ya.
Ingin ke Lampung saya dari Palembang.
Ya, oke. Di Lampung nanti bisa kita nongkrong. Ya.
Nongkrong, yes.
Ya. Juga kepada Prof Juhary Ali, okay, ini kanda saya, abang yang cukup banyak pengalaman. I learn a lot from him as well. He's one of the expert actually in Malaysia. So thank you very much for participating in this conference, Prof. Right? And also Ayanda, Professor Wahyu Sastongko, also doing very insightful opinion on the legal part particularly, as well as Indonesian experience. And not to forget Dr. Epifiana from Russia, who just sent us the video, right? And also we pray for our friend also, Dr. Mariam from Maldives, to be in the very recovery, inshallah. Okay, so I conclude this session. Okay, again, at least I have few things maybe we can bear in mind, and means we keep point it. If we not take anything, at least we get something to take home, right? One of the thing to conclude from the session, one of the thing actually which is we have to ensure the supply chain still means move on, even though COVID-19 or pandemic happen to the whole world. It means more or less from our speaker's presentation, okay, we have to ensure and the food security, the health security, the supply chain, everything, I think need to be rechecked and we have to revise certain things, because most countries are not ready, and certain countries we become panic, especially at the early stage, and after a while we manage it nicely. So I believe yes, we can manage it wisely, but if we can manage it nicely from the beginning rather than wait for a few months, that would be much more better, right? So means we also cannot rely on one source of supply. For example, nowadays most of the countries we have to agree that we really rely on China because of cheap and cars, and they have huge industrial, and then it is good for capitalism economic style, because we can get cheap things and then with better quality, for example. However, because we only focus in one source and then the rest we ignore, and then we having a problem, right? So that among the point that I would like to raise now. And then the other thing, actually the segmentation of business post COVID also have to be realigned. So maybe prior this we think something that maybe in a different sphere, okay, different dimension, but now as our presenter also said, it is more on consumers perspective, all right? So everything have to be in line with consumers kind of thing, and also need to be aware on the necessity, okay? And this is the time that we have to look back for certain business, for example, they have to migrate, not only think about profit, but now think about the CSR as well, okay? And also packaging. For example, yesterday's in Canada, one grandmother feed the means a granddaughter. I think she feed with hand sanitizer. All right, because it was packed like a means like a soft drink. All right, which is means mislead the nanny. All right, so we have to be aware on that. And also my next point actually is on legal part. All right, as been mentioned by Prof Wahyu as well, and also from the questions, actually there are lots of things have to do to revise, and also means relates in line with our team, a conference team, which is law itself, also have to be to be rechecked, okay, or redo, or certain things have to means to revise. If not, it might have a problem later on, okay, because as I said, when we cannot deliver as what been means signed in the document, in the contract, okay, and then later on we might be sued or might be means bring to the court. And my last point here, actually, and I think most of our presenters also mentioned about the migration, okay, from traditional marketing, traditional business to the more on digitalized business, e-commerce, e-business, and we can see booming, okay, certain of businesses, right? And also the, for example, the even Uber now is moved to Uber Eat, right? So they have GoFood, they have in Malaysia they have Tapao now, they have this Grab Food, Panda, and many more. However, it is should be in line with the need of the people, and also the law should be in the place as well. If not, will be a problem later on. So that's from me. Anyway, my apologies for any mistake, for any kekurangan. Maybe we can meet again in the near future. Okay, so then I pass the baton to Mr. Bayu. All right, please.
All right, thank you, Prof. Mizan. Give big applause for all of us here and in virtual meetings.